Hello, welcome to my channel. In this video I will show you how I made a small console table using this bit of cherry wood. So first I just had a look at the slab of cherry I had, looked for imperfections on the surface of the wood, looked at where the soft spots were so I could identify what needs fixing. So I knew I was going to attach metal legs to this table. So before I went any further with the design, I just made sure that the layout was right and that the client actually liked it. And here you can actually see some of the imperfections I was looking at earlier. These I decided to fill with a resin, so I just put some cork around the edges just to prevent any leaking. Now, to be honest, I don't actually have that much experience with using resin, so I was a bit apprehensive of how this would turn out, but I just mixed them in, added a blue pigment in, and then just started to fill in those gaps, and which I would eventually sand out and smooth out afterwards. The cork was actually quite good. There weren't any leaking. I put a bit of tape at the side and that managed to hold the resin in place. Now it was just a case of letting it dry and seeing what's shape and well how it ended up looking. Also, I'm quite new to filming videos like this, especially for YouTube, so I'd be very happy if you're willing to help me out. Just comment down below. Do you like the camera angles I filmed this video with? Do you want to see more detailed shots or a wider variety of camera angles? Just let me know what you think. So now I had filled in all the spots that I needed to. I took the heat gun and just went over the resin just to get rid of any bubbles and just to help it set a little bit quicker. The cork managed to hold. There was one small tiny part where it sort of went over the cork. Could potentially have just put a thicker layer of cork on, but it didn't end up going too bad. Once I finished using the heat gun, it was just sort of letting the resin dry, letting it set. So when I came back to it the next day, or a couple of days later actually, it was all looking good. There wasn't any bubbles. It managed to set quite well, or at least I think so anyway, but it turned out quite well. I was quite happy with it. Now that the resin was done, it was a case of figuring out how I was going to attach these legs to the bit of cherry I had. I was going to recess the legs in, but I found that if I did that, I would have ended up cutting away some of that live edge, which is something I didn't actually want to do. So I ended up just screwing them onto the slab itself, and I made it a bit bigger just to allow for some seasonal wood movement. Once I was happy with the layout of the legs, I just got some double-sided tape and stuck the legs on just to keep them in place, and drilled small little pilot holes where the screws will go into, just to ensure I had the layout the same. For the legs, I actually numbered them, just so when I do take them apart to actually drill through properly, I always attach the correct leg back to the holes that leg belongs to. When all the small pilot holes were drilled, I then went in and drilled deeper into the wood for the screws to go into much nicer. I actually put a small little bit of tape on my drill bit just so I knew what depth I was going to be drilling into. The place that I bought the legs from, they actually provided the screws, so all I had to do really is get a drill bit, drill into a scrap bit of wood to make sure the screws actually go into there nice and cleanly. Once I finished drilling the holes, I just lined the table legs up again to make sure that the holes that I drilled were actually accurate, and they were, so I was quite happy. Now comes the most tedious task of all woodworking, and that's sanding. Probably the most important thing, besides actually making sure you cut to the right measurements. Sanding pretty much makes or breaks a product in my opinion. So I'll save you the hassle of watching me go through all the bits of paper and just have this time lapse of a short section. This also works mainly because I like listening to music when I do my woodworking, especially the sanding, and if I'm recording on my phone, I can't listen to my music. And on that point, drop down in the comments below what music you like to listen to. And now that the sanding was done, I wiped everything off with a tissue, using air duster just to clean off any excess sawdust that's in the cracks, and then I started applying the finish. I used an oil finish and I just put it all over the table. I ended up putting in 2 coats, did a light sand in the middle of it once the first coat was dry, and turned out quite well. It's going to offer some good protection. Again, this is just a hallway table, a small console table, so there's not going to really be any drinks placed on it, so I don't need that added protection. When I actually came to editing this video to put together, I actually realised I didn't show what the resin ended up looking like, which is a bit disappointing, but just know that it did turn out quite well. And here I'm just putting the legs in place and attaching the screws. I did go quite tight, but not super tight, so to again allow for the wood movement over the course of many years, but it's secure enough that the table won't fall apart. Were in place, all the legs were attached, and now it came down to putting the rubber feet at the ends of the table, just to prevent it slipping, which on a funny note is actually something I did on my way to work this morning. I fully decked it, got a cut all over my hand, and it wasn't too fun. And this is just the table when it's finished. It was quite strong. There was a lovely, beautiful grain pattern across the board of cherry, and I was very happy with how it turned out. For those of you wondering, I do my woodworking in the shed at the back of my garden, which is also a home gym. So that's always quite fun. So here I just brought the console table into my living room, just so you could see what it looks like in an actual space rather than just in a workshop. I was very happy with how it turned out. The cherry really, the grain of the cherry really was quite good after the oil finish was put on. These are just some shots of the small details. And then these are just some quick shots of items placed on the table. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the Spirited Makers YouTube channel.